Danny Marsh was sleeping when the alarm went off. He had been dreaming about fishing with his father back in Texas, the way he always did when he was tired. The sound cut through the dream like a knife, and he sat up fast, hitting his head on the low ceiling of his bunk. He cursed and rubbed his head. 3 days. He had been on rest cycle for only 3 days after spending 2 weeks fixing a broken cargo hauler near Jupiter. His body still ached. His hands were still covered in small cuts from sharp metal edges, and now someone needed help. Danny pulled himself out of bed and walked to his console. The small room was messy, filled with tools and spare parts and empty food containers. He lived alone on his repair shuttle, a small ship called the Rusty Nail. It was not a beautiful ship, but it worked. Danny had made sure of that. The console showed an emergency beacon. Someone had dropped out of hyperspace near the outer belt and was broadcasting a universal distress signal. The message was simple: ship damaged, reactor failing, need immediate help. Danny looked at the coordinates. It was far, almost at the edge of mapped space. Most mechanics would ignore it. The trip would take hours and there was no guarantee of payment. But the beacon also showed something else. The pay was triple the standard rate. No questions asked. He thought about it for maybe 10 seconds. Then he started the engine. The journey took 6 hours. Danny spent most of it eating cold noodles and checking his tools. He did not know what kind of ship he would find, so he packed everything: welding gear, cutting tools, spare parts from a dozen different vessels, cables and wires and sheets of metal. If it was broken, Danny could fix it. That was what he did. When he finally arrived at the coordinates, he saw the ship. And he stopped breathing. It was massive. The thing was longer than a space station, with a hull that curved like a living creature. The metal was dark purple, almost black, and it seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars. Strange symbols covered every surface, and Danny could swear they were moving, shifting, changing when he tried to look directly at them. This was not a human ship. This was not a ship from any species Danny had ever heard of. He sat in his chair for a long moment, just staring. His scanner was going crazy, showing readings that made no sense. The ship was old, impossibly old, thousands of years, maybe more. But it was also advanced, using technology that Danny could not even begin to understand. And there were people inside. His scanner showed 17 life signs, all of them weak and getting weaker. The reactor was failing, just like the beacon said. Radiation was flooding the ship. If someone did not help soon, everyone on board would die. Danny thought about calling for backup. He thought about turning around and going home. He thought about all the reasons why a simple mechanic from Houston should not be the first human to make contact with an unknown alien species. Then he flew his shuttle toward the docking port. The inside of the ship was dark. Emergency lights glowed along the floor, casting everything in a dim red color. The air was thick and warm, and it smelled strange, like flowers and metal mixed together. Danny walked slowly, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. He found the first body after only a few minutes. It was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that looked like silver scales. The face was almost human, but not quite. The eyes were too large, the mouth too small, the ears pointed like a cat. The creature was wearing some kind of armor, and it was holding a weapon that Danny did not recognize. But it was still breathing, barely. Danny knelt down beside it. The creature's eyes opened, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Two beings from different worlds, meeting for the first time in history. The creature spoke. The words were strange, clicking and musical, but Danny's translator tried to keep up. The meaning came through broken and unclear. "Leave, you must leave. The Queen, you cannot." Danny shook his head. "I'm here to help. Where's your reactor?" The creature seemed confused by this. Its silver hand reached up and grabbed Danny's arm with surprising strength. "You do not understand. We do not need help from lesser beings." Danny gently removed the hand. Yeah, well, right now you do. So where's the reactor? The creature stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, it pointed down a long corridor. Danny followed the direction and started walking. Behind him, he heard the creature say something else, but his translator could not catch it. It sounded like a warning, or maybe a prayer. The reactor room was a disaster. Danny had seen bad situations before, but this was something else. The whole system was built around giant crystals that glowed with inner light, and half of them were cracked or shattered. Energy was leaking everywhere, causing sparks and small fires. The cooling system had failed completely, and the temperature was rising fast. But under all the alien technology, Danny could see something familiar. The principles were the same. Energy needed to flow somewhere. Heat needed to be removed. Pressure needed to be controlled. These were universal truths, no matter who built the machine. He opened his tool bag and got to work. He did not know how long he worked. Hours, probably. He crawled through tight spaces and burned his hands on hot metal. He used parts from his own shuttle to replace broken components. He welded and cut and rewired until his arms shook with exhaustion. Somewhere in the ship, an alien queen lay unconscious, surrounded by her dying crew. She ruled an empire that spanned 12 star systems. She had conquered worlds and commanded fleets. She had never needed anyone. But right now, her life depended on a tired mechanic from Earth who had simply answered a call for help. Danny did not know any of this. He just knew that the reactor was broken and he was going to fix it. That was the job. The cooling system was the biggest problem. Danny understood that within the first hour. The alien crystals generated enormous amounts of heat, and the original cooling system used some kind of liquid that did not exist on any human world. Most of it had leaked out through cracks in the pipes. Danny sat back and wiped sweat from his face. The temperature in the reactor room was now over 40 degrees. His shirt was soaked through and his hands were shaking from exhaustion, but he could not stop. If he stopped, the crystals would overheat and explode. Everyone on the ship would die. He looked at the broken pipes and thought about what he had on his shuttle. Water. He had water tanks for drinking and for cooling his own small engine. It was not the same as the alien liquid, but water was good at absorbing heat. If he could connect his tanks to the alien system, it might work long enough to stabilize things. It was a crazy idea. It probably would not work, but Danny did not have any better ideas. He ran back to his shuttle and started pulling apart his own cooling system. The rusty nail was not going anywhere for a while, but that was fine. Danny could worry about his ship later. Right now, he needed every pipe, every pump, every drop of water he could find. For the next 8 hours, Danny worked without stopping. He connected human pipes to alien technology using welding, tape, and pure stubbornness. He built adapters out of spare metal. He created new seals using material he found in the alien engine room. When something did not fit, he made it fit. When something broke, he fixed it again. Slowly, hour by hour, the temperature began to drop. By the time Danny finished, the reactor was stable. The crystals still glowed, but they no longer pulsed with dangerous energy. The radiation levels were falling. The life signs on his scanner were getting stronger. He had done it. Danny leaned against the wall and slid down to the floor. His entire body hurt. His eyes could barely stay open. He had not slept in almost 20 hours, but he smiled because the job was done. He would just rest for a minute, just close his eyes for a little while. He was asleep before his head touched the wall. Queen opened her eyes slowly. Her head was pounding, and her body felt weak in a way she had not experienced in centuries. The last thing she remembered was the explosion, the alarms, and then darkness. She sat up and looked around. She was still in her throne room, but something was different. The emergency lights were on, casting everything in red shadows. The air smelled wrong, like something foreign had entered her ship. And there was a creature sleeping against her wall. stood slowly, her legs unsteady beneath her. She walked toward the creature and looked down at it. It was small, much smaller than a. Its skin was soft and brown, covered in some kind of fabric. Its hands were wrapped in cloth, stained with dark fluids. Tools lay scattered around it, strange devices that did not recognize. The creature was holding something in its hand, a metal tool of some kind, simple and crude. Had ruled the Empire for 300 years. She had met thousands of species across the galaxy. Some had been allies, most had been conquered, but she had never seen anything like this before. She reached out and touched the creature's face. Danny woke up suddenly, his heart pounding. An alien face was inches from his own, silver skin and large dark eyes studying him with intense curiosity. He screamed and jumped backward, hitting his head on the wall again. The alien straightened up and Danny realized several things at once. First, this alien was female, or at least looked female. Second, she was wearing clothes that looked expensive and royal. Third, she was looking at him like he was the strangest thing she had ever seen. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice was deep and musical, and his translator caught every word clearly. Danny rubbed his head and tried to calm his breathing. Danny Marsh, I'm a mechanic. I got your distress signal." The alien's eyes narrowed. "You came alone?" "Yeah. With no weapons." Danny looked around at his scattered tools. "I mean, I have a wrench. That can hurt if you swing it hard enough." The alien stared at him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then slowly, she asked the question that would change everything. "Why did you come?" Danny blinked. "What do you mean?" "You received a signal from an unknown ship. You did not know what was inside. You did not know if we were dangerous. Why would you risk your life for strangers?" Danny thought about this. It was a strange question. No one had ever asked him that before. "Because you needed help," he said finally. "That's my job. Someone calls, I come. Someone's in trouble, I try to fix it. That's just what you do." The alien was silent for a very long time. She seemed to be trying to understand something that did not make sense to her. "I am Queen," she said at last, "ruler of the Empire. You have saved my life and the lives of my crew." Danny nodded slowly. "Okay, nice to meet you." His expression changed. For just a moment, Danny thought he saw something that might have been a smile. "You are a very strange creature, Danny Marsh." Danny shrugged. "I've been called worse." Around them, the ship began to wake up. Alarms stopped. Lights returned to normal. And somewhere in the corridors, the crew started to recover, not knowing that their queen had just met the first human in their history. A tired mechanic who had simply answered a call for help. That did not trust Danny. He understood that within the first hour after the crew woke up. They gathered in the throne room, a dozen silver-skinned aliens with weapons pointed at his chest. Their eyes were cold and suspicious. Some of them looked like they wanted to kill him right there. Their leader was a tall male with scars across his face. He stood before the queen and spoke in rapid, angry words that Danny's translator struggled to follow. "This creature is dangerous. We know nothing about its species. It could be a spy, a scout for an invasion fleet. We should kill it now and take its ship." Danny raised his hand slowly. "Hey, I'm right here. I can understand you." The alien turned to look at him. "Then understand this, creature. I am Commander Al, and I have protected Queen for 200 years. I do not care that you fixed our ship. You are an unknown, and unknowns are threats. That is the law of survival." "Al," the Queen's voice was calm but firm. "This human saved our lives. Without him, we would all be dead." "A fact that makes him more dangerous, not less," Al replied. "What does he want? What is his purpose? No one helps strangers without expecting something in return." All eyes turned to Danny. He lowered his hands and took a deep breath. "I don't want anything. I got paid already. The distress call offered triple rate for the job, so technically you already paid me. We're even." They looked at each other in confusion. Al stepped closer, his weapon still raised. You expect us to believe you risked your life for money. A small amount of money that you could have earned doing safer work. Danny shrugged. It's my job. Someone needs help, I help them. That's what mechanics do. That's what rescue workers do. That's what humans do. Impossible, Al said. No species is that foolish. Queen raised her hand and the room went silent. She stepped down from her throne and walked toward Danny. Her movements were graceful, like water flowing downhill. She stopped just a few feet away and looked into his eyes. Tell me about your people, she said. Tell me about humans. Danny scratched his head. No one had ever asked him to explain humanity before. It was like being asked to describe water to a fish. We're from a planet called Earth, he started. Small place, nothing special. We've only been traveling in space for about 300 years. We're not the strongest species out there or the most advanced, but we're stubborn. We don't give up easily. And this helping strangers, pressed, is this common among your kind? Danny thought about firefighters running into burning buildings. He thought about doctors working through the night. He thought about his grandmother, who used to make extra food for neighbors she barely knew. Yeah, he said, it's pretty common. We have entire organizations built around it. Fire departments, hospitals, search and rescue teams, coast guards. When someone is in trouble, there's usually someone willing to help, even if they don't know the person, even if it's dangerous. They murmured among themselves. They seemed disturbed by this information. But why? Al demanded. What do you gain from this behavior? Danny looked at him and felt a sudden sadness. These aliens were powerful and ancient, but they had never understood something that every human child learned before they could walk. We gain a better world, he said simply. If I help someone today, maybe someone will help me tomorrow, maybe not. But that's not the point. The point is that we all do better when we all do better. Life is hard enough without making it harder for each other. The room was silent, was watching Danny with an expression he could not read. Finally she spoke. Our ship was sabotaged. A faction within my empire wants me dead. They damaged our reactor and stranded us far from home. Without your help, their plan would have succeeded. Danny nodded slowly. I'm sorry to hear that. Politics can be ugly. We are far from space. Our engines are damaged and we cannot travel at full speed. The journey home will take many weeks. She paused. You have done enough, Danny Marsh. You may take your shuttle and leave. We will not stop you. Danny looked around at the alien crew. They were still weak from the radiation. Their ship was still damaged. They had enemies waiting for them and a long journey ahead. He thought about his shuttle sitting in the docking bay. He thought about Earth and his small apartment and the fishing trip he had been dreaming about. Then he thought about his grandmother and the extra food she always made. How about I come with you, he said. Your engines need work, I can help. Al made a sound of disgust. My queen, we cannot allow this creature to remain on our ship. The risk is too great. Looked at Danny for a long moment. Then she smiled, and it was the most alien thing he had seen since boarding the ship. The human stays, she said, and Commander Al, you will treat him with respect. He has earned that much. Al bowed his head, but his eyes promised trouble. Danny just smiled. He had dealt with angry bosses before. This was nothing new. So, he said, rubbing his hands together, where's the engine room? Let's see what we're working with. Journey to space would take 3 weeks. Danny spent most of that time in the engine room, surrounded by alien technology and confused engineers. At first, the mechanics refused to work with him. They stood in corners and watched him with suspicious eyes. When he asked questions, they gave short answers or no answers at all. When he tried to explain what he was doing, they pretended not to understand. But Danny was patient. He had worked with difficult people before. He started by showing them simple things. how to check the connections he had built between their systems and his human parts, how to monitor the temperature of the reactor, how to spot problems before they became serious. They were proud, but they were also practical. After a few days, one of the younger engineers started asking questions. Then another. By the end of the first week, Danny had a small group following him around, watching everything he did. Their names were hard to pronounce, so Danny gave them nicknames. There was Slim, a tall engineer who rarely spoke. There was Sparks, who had a habit of getting shocked by electrical panels. There was Red, who had reddish marks on her silver skin. They pretended to be annoyed by the names, but Danny caught them using them when they thought he was not listening. The work was hard but satisfying. Danny had always loved fixing things, and alien technology was just a new kind of puzzle. The principles were the same everywhere. Energy flowed, heat built up, pressure needed release. Once you understood those basics, you could fix anything. He also spent time learning about They were an old species, much older than humans. Their empire had existed for 10,000 years, spreading across dozens of star systems. They were warriors and conquerors, raised to believe that strength was the only thing that mattered. They did not have words for charity. They did not understand kindness to strangers. In their culture, you only helped family and allies. Everyone else was either useful or dangerous. Danny found this sad, but he did not judge them. Every species had its own history and its own reasons for being the way it was. On the 8th day, something happened that changed everything. One of the crew members, a young female named collapsed in the corridor. The radiation from the reactor failure had damaged her body in ways that medicine could not fix. She was dying. The ship's doctor explained the situation to Queen in the medical bay. Danny stood in the corner, watching and listening. "Her blood is poisoned," the doctor said. "The radiation destroyed something essential. We do not have the supplies to help her." "Is there nothing we can do?" asked. Her voice was calm, but Danny could see tension in her shoulders. "If we had access to compatible blood, we might be able to filter hers. But we have no reserves. The journey to reach help is too long." Danny stepped forward. "What about my blood?" Everyone turned to look at him. "Human blood," he explained. "I don't know if it's compatible, but we could test it. If it works, you can have as much as you need." The doctor stared at him. "You would give your blood to save a stranger." "She's not a stranger anymore," Danny said. "I've been eating lunch with her for a week. She laughed at my jokes yesterday. That makes her a friend." Commander Al, who had been standing by the door, made a sound of disbelief. "This is a trick. He is trying to poison us." "Then test it first," Danny said. He rolled up his sleeve and held out his arm. "Take a sample, run your tests. If it's safe, use it. If it's not, throw it away. But at least try." The doctor looked at the Queen, nodded slowly. They took Danny's blood and ran their tests. The results came back an hour later. It did not work. Human blood was too different from blood. The proteins did not match. The cells could not communicate. Would not be saved by Danny's gift. But she was saved anyway. The test revealed something unexpected. A chemical in Danny's blood could be extracted and used to help A's body heal itself. It was not a cure, but it bought her time. Enough time to reach space and get proper treatment. Danny gave 3 pints of blood over the next 2 days. He felt weak and tired, but he did not complain. He just ate extra food and drank lots of water and let his body recover. After that, Commander Al stopped talking about killing him. On the 15th day, Queen summoned Danny to her private chambers. He had never been there before. The room was large and elegant, filled with strange art and soft fabrics. Sat on a low couch, watching him enter. "Sit," she said, pointing to a chair across from her. Danny sat. His legs were grateful for the rest. "I have been watching you," said, "learning about your species through your actions. You are not what I expected." "What did you expect?" Weakness, foolishness. A species that helps strangers should be easy to exploit. She paused. But I was wrong. Your kindness is not weakness. It is something else. Something I do not fully understand. Danny thought about this. On Earth, we have a saying, what goes around comes around. If you put good things into the world, good things come back to you. Maybe not right away, maybe not from the same person, but eventually the universe balances out. Smiled slightly. Your universe sounds very different from mine. Maybe, Danny said. Or maybe we just look at the same universe in different ways. They sat in silence for a moment, then spoke again. We will reach the border of my empire soon. When we do, I would like you to speak to my people, tell them about humanity, help them understand what I have learned. Danny blinked. You want me to be some kind of ambassador? I want you to be honest, said. The way you have been honest with me. My people need to hear your words. They need to see that there is another way to live. Danny thought about his small shuttle and his quiet life. He thought about fishing trips and cold noodles and the simple joy of fixing things. Then he thought about alive because he had offered his blood. Okay, he said, I'll do my best. Nodded, that is all anyone can ask. Was called, and it was the most beautiful thing Danny had ever seen. The planet was covered in crystal towers that reached toward the sky like frozen lightning. Cities spread across the surface in geometric patterns, glowing with soft purple light. Ships moved through the air in endless streams, carrying millions of beings about their daily lives. Danny stood at the window of Queen's ship and stared. He was a mechanic from Houston. He fixed broken engines and leaky pipes. He was not supposed to see things like this. But here he was. The ship landed at the Royal Palace, a massive structure built into the side of a mountain. Guards in shining armor lined the path from the landing pad to the entrance. Their faces were hard and cold, and they watched Danny with the same suspicion he had seen from the crew at the beginning. He was getting used to that look. Walked beside him, her robes flowing behind her like water. She had explained what would happen. Danny would speak to the High Council, the ruling body of the Empire. He would tell them about humanity. He would try to convince them that peaceful contact was possible. No pressure. The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of sat in rising rows around a central platform, their silver faces turned toward Danny as he walked to the center. The room was silent except for the sound of his footsteps. He had never given a speech in his life. He hated public speaking. In school, he had failed every presentation because his hands shook too much to hold his notes. But this was different. This mattered. He stopped at the center of the platform and looked up at the council. So many faces, so many eyes, all waiting for him to speak. My name is Danny Marsh, he said. His voice echoed in the huge room. I'm a mechanic. I fix things for a living. 3 weeks ago, I got a distress signal from your Queen's ship. I want to help because that's my job. I didn't know who I would find. I didn't care. Someone needed help, so I helped them. He paused and took a deep breath. I know you don't understand that. Your commander told me that helping strangers is foolish. That strength is all that matters. That the only people worth protecting are your own family and allies. He looked around the room, meeting as many eyes as he could. But here's the thing. Humans don't think that way. We believe that everyone is worth protecting. We believe that helping strangers makes us stronger, not weaker. We built our entire civilization on that idea. A murmur went through the council. Some of them looked angry, others looked confused, a few looked curious. We're not a perfect species, Danny continued. We've made mistakes. We've fought wars and hurt each other and done terrible things. But we always come back to the same truth. We're better together than apart. We're stronger when we help each other than when we fight each other. He pointed to Queen, who sat on her throne at the head of the room. Your queen is alive because I answered a call for help. Your ship is working because I spent 16 hours fixing a reactor I had never seen before. A young woman named is alive because I gave my blood without asking for anything in return. He spread his hands. I'm not special. I'm just a guy who fixes things. But on Earth, there are millions of people like me. People who run into burning buildings to save strangers. People who spend their lives healing the sick. People who give their time and money and blood to help others they will never meet. He let that sink in for a moment. We don't want to fight you. We don't want to conquer you. We just want to meet you, to learn from you, to share what we know. Maybe that makes us foolish, but I think it makes us human. He was done. He had said everything he could think to say. Now it was up to the council. The chamber exploded into noise. Hundreds of talking at once, arguing and shouting and debating. Danny stood in the center of it all, feeling very small and very tired. Then the doors burst open. Armed soldiers poured into the chamber, their weapons raised. They wore different uniforms than the palace guards. Their faces were filled with hate. "The Queen dies today," someone shouted. "The old ways are finished." It was the coup. The same people who had sabotaged the ship. They had waited for this moment when the Queen was surrounded by potential enemies and her guard was down. Guards rushed to protect. Council members screamed and ran for the exits. Weapons fired, filling the air with bright flashes of energy. Danny watched it all happen in slow motion. He saw a soldier raising his weapon toward the Queen. He saw that none of her guards were close enough to stop him. And he moved. He did not think about it. He did not plan it. He just moved the way he had been moving his whole life, toward the problem, toward the thing that needed fixing. He grabbed a fallen guard's weapon and threw himself in front of. The soldier fired. Danny fired back. The soldier fell. More soldiers came. Danny kept firing, standing between them and the Queen. He was not a warrior. He had never fought anyone in his life. But he had good reflexes and steady hands, and he refused to let anyone else die today. Beside him drew her own weapon and joined the fight. Commander Al appeared from somewhere, his face twisted with battle fury. Together, the three of them held the line while reinforcements arrived. It was over in minutes. The coup failed. The soldiers were captured or killed. The council chamber fell silent. Danny looked down at the weapon in his hands. His arms were shaking. His heart was pounding. He had never been so scared in his entire life. But he was still standing, and so was the Queen. Turned to look at him. Her silver face was streaked with something that might have been sweat or tears. "You saved me again," she said. Danny shrugged weakly, force of habit. She laughed. It was a strange sound, not quite human, but Danny understood it perfectly. 2 weeks later, the Empire officially opened diplomatic relations with Earth. It was the first time in their 10,000-year history that they had reached out to another species in peace rather than war. Queen named Danny Marsh as the first human ambassador to the Empire. He tried to refuse. He was just a mechanic, he said. He did not know anything about diplomacy or politics. Smiled at him. "You know how to help people," she said. "You know how to fix things. That is all diplomacy really is." Danny thought about this for a long time. "Can I still fix engines sometimes?" he asked finally. "Of course." "Then okay, I'll do it." And so a mechanic from Houston became the bridge between two civilizations, not because he was special, not because he was chosen, but because when someone needed help, he had simply answered the call. That was the human way. And maybe, just maybe, it would become the way too.